Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl, back again for another movie spoiler review. And today I'll be covering the Lindsay Lohan movie Herbie Fully Loaded. And it's something that I vaguely recall somebody suggested for me sometime. Well, maybe not this specifically, but uh, after I did my movie review of Freaky Friday last year, commenter suggested I, do some more reviews for some Lindsay Lohan films, and that's what gave me the inspiration to put this movie and Mean Girls on the list this year to review, which I should have Mean Girls up on my channel soon. So you can check out my thoughts on the 2004 film Mean Girls. Anyway, uh, yeah, uh, this is the fifth and final installment of no, it's the sixth and final installment of the Herbie Disney film franchise. And it started off with like the love bug. Not the love bug. It started off, yeah, the love bug in December 24th, 1968. Then a sequel, Herbie Rise Again, June 6th of 1974. Then Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo in June 24th, 1977. Herbie Goes Bananas on June 25th, 1980. Uh, Disney The Love Bug in November 30th, 1997. And then this final one, Herbie Fully Loaded, in June 22nd of 2005. So yeah, it's obviously a beloved franchise, but not many people like. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you mentioned about like Herbie the Love Bug, people would remember certain Herbie films. Uh, I vaguely remember the '90s Love Bug because if you recall, like oh crap, uh, what was the Disney? Uh, Disney had like a late night, films or something. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be late night. It's kind of like Nick at Night kind of stuff. Uh, of certain films or shows that goes back way back in the 60s and the 70s or even like the 80s that popped up late night on Disney Channel where they got the Disney Vault kind of situation where you can watch old Disney properties. And I vaguely remember at least a couple of the Love Bug films popping up. I wasn't like super drawn into them. They were fun. It's just like a sentient, car. But I think more people probably remember Herbie Fully Loaded more so than all the previous ones, unless you're talking about a certain generation of people. Uh, but Herbie is like is in the category of like most iconic uh movie vehicles in pop culture. It's like arguably is right up there with like it's obviously in the low tier range, but it's up there because I think like I it's only slightly below like the Mach 5 from Speed Racer, which is another movie I probably should like rewatch because I remember watching some Speed Racer here and there growing up. Matter of fact, I probably should put the Speed Racer movie on the list because that is actually fun. I remember it being like a fun film, but I can't really remember through and through of the uh, 2008 film. Uh, Go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go. I can't believe I still even freaking remember the freaking theme song to that thing. But anyway, uh, like Herbie, the Mach 5, James Bond, Aston Martin, uh, the Batmobile, the Kit Knight Rider, uh, uh, the Millennium Falcon, if you really want to stretch it. In terms of iconic movie vehicles of all time, those are like the biggies. Of course, Batmobile beats them all out for obvious reasons. Uh, but yeah, like just iconic vehicles of all time, and Herbie is up there. Especially like being like a sentient vehicle is not too different from Kit Knight Rider. But the only reason Herbie probably beats out Knight Rider slightly because I don't recall Knight Rider actually doing anything on his own besides talking, because that's what it has over Herbie, because Herbie is more like R2D2 in a way, where it speaks in like honking noises and just moving about, so you just kind of interpret what it's feeling. And of course it's very it's gear and headlights is expressive, so you can uh get a feel of its emotions at the very least. uh well, Kit is very like uh you know uh doesn't have that kind of expression. Oh, it doesn't need to, you can just do it via voice. Voiced by Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World, by the way. Anyway, but yeah, this movie was directed by Angela Robinson. Uh, Stars Lindsay Lohan as Margaret Maggie Payton. Justin Long, you don't even know he was in this film, as Kevin Maggie's love interest. Matt Dillon as Trip Murphy, a NASCAR driver. Michael Keaton, which I forgot he was even a part of this, as Peyton, Ray Payton Sr. Brecklin Meyer as Ray Payton Jr. Carol Hines as Sally, potential love interest to Payton Sr. Thomas Lennon as uh, Tripp's brother, Larry Murphy. Jimmy Simpson as Crash, Tripp's tech assistant, which I didn't know Lennon or Simpson wasn't even a part of this film either. It's funny when you go back to certain movies and people that are familiar now that you forgot they was in this like older film. Uh, but yeah, and the Herbie franchise, they always get like kind of new owners of this car for the most part. I think it's only like a couple of times where a previous owner is mentioned. But I kind of wish that when Herbie gets involved with, and it's okay maybe like somebody else adopts Herbie at least once, but if it stick with a person, it should kind of like stay with the family, so it can always be a part the friends and family that Herbie made in his lifetime. But it's always, I guess it's kind of like James Bond, where it's like he always got like a new love interest kind of situation, and then very rarely you actually see James Bond stick with one woman consistently. There's only like, outside of Daniel Craig, one other Bond, the lesser one that people really care for, that actually got married, but of course he ended up dying. But besides that, it's only like Daniel Craig that actually kind of well, not married, but had like a kid and took very seriously of this one person. But yeah, I just kind of wish, like, man, like Herbie should have just stuck with one family and got essentially passed down to uh the next generation to the next generation to the next generation, and constantly being fixed up and taken care of over the years. But you get this nice montage in the beginning of this film of certain clips throughout the previous 5 films that Herbie was involved in, where he, won all these races, and well, you don't even get to see, and this is kind of like a bummer, but maybe it's because you don't want to pay like the actors, because you saw their face, you gotta pay them some bit of money. This movie made a great deal of money at the box office, because it had like a budget of 50 million, came out 144 million dollars. You didn't have the budget to pay the likeness of the previous actors. Matter of fact, in the 5th installment, the previous owner was the actually, like, the main lead star Bruce Campbell. So we're gonna show all those clips. It's be kind of fun to show the previous owners, because they kind of like silhouette it in a way. But if not, because if he wasn't gonna have like any cameo appearances from at least one of the previous because you wouldn't, because matter of fact, this is when we had like actual famous NASCAR drivers as a cameo appearances in this film. So you mean to tell me you can't at least have Bruce Campbell show up as like a cameo, not like the actual character he played in the previous Herbie film, but at the very least show as like a cool cameo and homage to the Herbie franchise, because obviously not every actor is probably like alive, at least not the main one. But I don't know, I guess the clips was supposed to represent that, but you didn't even get a chance to see like in like the Mary Poppins movie, the father of the children was actually, I think, like the main lead in the very first Love Bug film in the 60s. So I thought that was pretty cool. He was a part of a couple of good Disney properties. So you see all these clips from the previous films of Herbie's rise to fame and then his downfall, where it's not, they even show like clips of him like hanging out with Kit from Knight Rider, which is pretty dope. But after like he like some kind of fall from grace where he stopped winning so many races, but it's never explained as to why. Well, we kind of know why, because Volkswagen Beetles doesn't have the same kind of horsepower as many other cars that will come after the Volkswagen model. So it could have just retired, while it was on top. Kind of like, Michael Jordan, like go out on top kind of situation. But eventually, for some reason, it gets towed away. But it's like, what happened to the from the 90s, the main character? Why, like he didn't keep this like love bug, together over the years and kept it in the family so it won't feel like abandoned? Because essentially Herbie has been like consistently abandoned by the previous owners, or maybe not them directly, but maybe their grandchildren or something. Like you just like don't want to take care of it and they sold it off or pawned it off or whoever it is, but it's just your thing, like, okay, when the previous owners have like children and they like will have fond memories associated with Herbie, and they will carry that on through their children. That kind of thing. It's just that part always seemed weird to me. That you will like if you have something that's like if you have like a scent in your car, you'll do everything in your power to keep that car in the family, especially befriended it. It's weird. So it's getting hauled off to the junkyard, and then because it's like barely running, and it's on the chopping block of being crushed. Then enter like their main leads, uh Maggie, who's just graduated. It's funny to see Liz Lohan doing all the skateboarding crap, and it's like it's hard to look at that now compared to back then. But you know, kids, of course, it's kids skateboarding nowadays too. But it's just like it was like a huge deal. You see, like kids like in the '90s and early 2000s doing a lot of skateboarding, and she just graduated college, and she's planning on going to New York for this internship at ESPN because she comes from a family of like racers, and uh her dad, Peyton Sr., is losing sponsors left and right because his son isn't a good race car driver. I imagine good. I'm not sure what makes like a great race car driver. You gotta just. I'm pretty sure he was taught very well how to. It's not just obviously it's not just driving in a circle, but you actually got to be able to maneuver and things like that. You would think you were taught at a very young age how to do all that stuff, but it's just like isn't winning all these that many races, so you're losing sponsors. Uh, But as a graduation present, his Peyton Senior is taking her daughter out to this junkyard because he doesn't have that much money, even though you live in a very fancy freaking house. Uh, uh, but you're taking your daughter out to a junkyard instead of like a normal car dealership to get her a actual decent car. But you took it out to a junkyard for some reason to get for a first car. There's a starter. There's a such thing as there's a difference between like a starter car and then just like a no starter at all. But she ends up finding Herbie, who's been trying to signal her. Don't know why he singled her out of everybody that probably showed up. He saw something in her, I guess, and she ended up begrudgingly choosing him, paying $75 for it, and then taking it to the mechanic shop owned by Kevin. And there's times when Maggie's screaming Kevin, and I can't help but think of Home Alone. It's like, God, that is deeply programmed into us. And of course, like the car is acting weird. I think it's something they don't understand as of yet, that the car is a bit sentient. Most people would probably be freaking the fuck out and calling it an exorcist. But it's one of those movie logics where you can accept, like, you don't need to know why exactly Herbie is sentient. Just it is no different from R2D2, in my opinion. So you can let that part go. So Kevin said, like, I can fix it up and everything like that. We'll go to this what do you call those things for where they can a car show to try to buy parts. And they end up meeting the main antagonist of the film, Trip, who is, one of those kind of like stuffy, well, not stuffy, but like egotistical uh sports athletes. And he gets full of himself over about like Maggie and and making jokes about uh, the Volkswagen, and of course being disrespected. Uh, uh, Herbie, you know, drives himself against Chip's uh, uh, ride and scratches it, thinking it's this driver who, because Herbie, Herbie's oil kind of thing kind of spurted out and ruined Maggie's shirt, so she had to change into these racing gear that was in Herbie's front trunk, which obviously would have belonged to I keep forgetting that freaking actor's name. What is wrong with me? Uh Bruce Campbell. Jeez. I don't know why I keep, struggling with that. Uh Clearly belonged to Bruce Campbell, but it's fitting her like a glove for some reason, even though it probably would have belonged to a fully grown male adult. But she falls into the helmet, which is kind of stuck to her head, and thinking like, oh, it's a mysterious driver, like they just dub Max. And Chip challenges Max to a race. This little, thing here. Not really any stakes involved, but just for his like honor. So Herbie and racing, and of course through these tricks and gimmicks of Herbie, uh, ends up beating Trip by a hair. So now Trip is obsessed with, because his reputation feels like his ego's bruised. So now he's doing everything he can to try to set up this local race competition so he can do everything he can to restore his fractured ego and beat this car. All the while, Maggie's trying to hide the fact that she's racing from her dad, because a long time ago she tried to race, got into an accident. So not wanting to lose his daughter, because the mom has obviously passed away a long time ago. So now he doesn't want anything to happen to his daughter. Um, uh, so Herbie, do some crazy antics. Uh, shown this a newspaper clipping of the localized race to Maggie and Kevin, because if Maggie wanted to go off to New York, she needs rent money and all this other stuff. So this $10,000 race, they can split between the two, so he can take care of his mechanic shop and pay off a couple of his debts. So they start to tinker with Herbie getting his suit up, brand spanking new, and starting to enter this race under a different pseudonym. Herbie, which is kind of shame. We could at least, I mean, if this was Fast and the Furious, we get to see actual, the race, to see who would race Trip himself. But it's very like montagey, and of course, man, it would have been dope to see. Like, I stopped watching Fast and Furious after the 5th movie, but I would be a lot more invested if you get to see like Herbie racing Dominic Toretto on screen. That would be dope. That would get people more interested, instead of trying to combine the universe with Men in Black and Transformers. With all that BS was so stupid. It makes a little bit more sense if Herbie gets involved in the Fast and Furious film. That'll be a lot more interesting. A sentient car. That'll be dope. Or since Kit from Knight Rider, had a short little thing with a cameo appearance with Herbie, given the montage or the previous like flashbacks, you can get like Kit from Knight Rider show up to Kit from Knight Rider, Herbie, and Dominic Toretto all racing in like this whole thing, that'll be dope. Instead of this, getting involved with the Transformers, is just like never understood why that makes sense to people. Uh, anyway, uh, but then, crap, what happened next? I'm blanking on it. Uh, uh, yeah, yeah. The uh, during the evening for the match between Herbie and Trip, Trip, pretending to like, respect, Maggie's grandfather, who was like also awesome racer in his own right, uh, made a bet with Maggie in terms of like using these kind of thing called slips or something, uh, racing for pink slips. What is that? Unsanctioned illegal form of auto racing that occurs on a public road. Racing in the streets is considered an ancient hazard, as horse racing occurred on the streets for centuries, and street racing is automobiles. Yes. Uh, and he, Chip bet his like stock car, and Maggie accepted, which caused Herbie to get jealous. So during the race, Herbie refused to cooperate, resulting in her loss, and she probably getting embarrassed, not only by the father finding out, also that Kevin found out that she, racing for Trips, potential stock car, even though they worked so hard to get Herbie souped up and how much it meant to them. So he got upset because, Maggie forgot, essentially, I won't say forgot where she came from, but it's like forgot what they was racing for. And that's when a situation with Peyton Jr. get into a racing accident where he can't see straight. Essentially, like, I don't want to say peripheral vision, but it's like you can't see all that well out of one eye. She said the doctor said it was like left eye, but she was looking at, the right for some reason. But you can't see out of, for temporarily out of one eye. So the brother suggested that Maggie take up his place, because they need the sponsors, they need to win, and their name's already in the race, so might as well have Maggie do the racing. Of course, father refuses, but then uh uh Trip, you know Trip put Herbie in this demolition derby after Maggie's trying to buy him back from him. She runs into the demolition derby to try to get Herbie out of it before he gets crushed to death. And she apologizes to Herbie, and Herbie, accepts an apology, get out of there before it's completely totaled. On its last tank of gas, it drives right back to Kevin's mechanic shop, and accepting Kevin accepting her apology, realizing like, I don't have the means in order to get the parts needed to fix Herbie back up. But the brother shows up with his crew in order to fix Herbie back up to racing speed. They get in. They get involved into the NASCAR race, and that's where we meet a lot of NASCAR, icons. Like, I'm not a NASCAR person. I know a couple of people from NASCAR, like, obviously, Jeff Gordon being like the biggest one. only seen maybe like a couple of NASCAR races on TV as a kid, mainly because my little brother was so into cars. So that's why like the little I know of it is because of him. But you also got like Jimmy Johnson, Tony Stewart, Dale, uh, 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 Jarrett. You want to say Dale Earnhardt for some reason. Uh, we got UNH announcer Alan Bestwick, uh, Benny Parsons, ESPN broadcaster Stuart Scott. Like I said, Dale Earn. Oh yeah, there's a Dale Earnhardt. I knew it. Like I, recognize Dale Earnhardt. Uh, Casey Mears, Casey Kane, Jeremy Mayfield, Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt, uh, 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 JJ Yaley, Bobby Labonte, Terry Labonte, Brandon Gahan, Mark Martin, Ward Burton, Carl Edwards, Jimmy Spencer, Mike Bliss, Scott Weimer, Greg Bethel, Jamie McCurry, Rusty Wallace, Brian Vickers, like I said, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, Elliott Sadler, Matt Kenseth, Martin Wiltrip, Ryan Newman, Scott Riggs, Boris Sid, Joe Nemechek, Bill Elliott, Sterling Martin, Jeff Burton, Ken Schrader, Morgan Shepard, Jeff Fuller, Bobby Hamilton Jr., Robbie Gordon, and Kevin Harvick. So a lot of like very NASCAR centered people cameo in this, mainly because I'm pretty sure a lot of them grew up watching Herbie the Love Bug, and of course since it's like a very NASCAR heavy type of film, which is not many movies that center around NASCAR competition. In terms of being a sports film, this is like a big deal. So of course, it has like a lot of sponsors, and it's probably explains why it's such a big deal because it's a decent script. Uh, uh, so a lot of people gone on board. It was like getting involved in this kind of thing. It's kind of funny how like you got something like Fast and Furious, and not one time you got any well-known racers in the real world cameoing in a film franchise centered around racing. Probably because it's not sports racing, one thing, and second of all, it's like crap. What was that second thing? It stopped being about like street racing. It became like heist films. Well, it's a sports heist film, but it became like not what the first two were about, or it was like, or even like the first three was about. It turned into a whole nother mess of a film franchise. They could at least, if you want to get away from like illegal street racing, it could have pivoted towards like legal street racing into like NASCARs and like I don't know why they didn't do that. It's kind of weird. Anyway, so now Maggie and Herbie is in the race. They take off, and it's starting off slow for Herbie, but eventually it catches up. It kind of, I immediately start thinking about Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds with like racing around the track, and I'm thinking like, man, it would be perfect for like some dueling right now. And it's like all I can think of is like you saying like rev it up. Matter of fact, I can. Do I got like yeah. Let's rev it up. That's what I'm thinking of. As like the race starts. So Herbie eventually catches up with a lot of people. Then eventually she gets boxed in by the other drivers. Then you hear her dad, who was at first watching the race on TV, I guess having like a second opinion once he actually see his daughter driving in NASCAR. I guess is close by for some reason because I'm not sure how many states that holds NASCAR race. I imagine it had to hold in different cities, not just one. But somehow he made it all the way to the racetrack in time to see the rest of the race. And then he gives her words of encouragement. And then she starts driving on top of one of the cars, which ruins like the oil thing in Herbie, which they have to quick a quick pit stop, then takes a replacement oil thing out of what is the Sarah Hines character's name? Sally? Yeah, Sally's little yellow uh uh car, new Beetle car, which somehow is also sentient by the end of the film for no unexplicable reason. Never insinuated any kind of sentience when you first see it early in the film. And it's like the car just turned sentient for some reason, you know, just willy-nilly, never fully explained. But the yellow Beetle is. So it gives Herbie enough to keep going to finish the race. And she ends up, well, after Chip tries to crash into her car to cause it to topple over, she brakes, causing Chip to crash, and Herbie wins the race. And of course Chip gets hauled away after thinking like, oh, this dude lost his mind, thinking like, calling like, oh, the car's alive, I'm telling you, the car's alive. And so Maggie is the first pig in the family to win the NASCAR race, and starting her NASCAR career, and started a love interest with Kevin and everything like that. And so that's where the movie ends. And well, the movie ends with Herbie go out on a date with the yellow Beetle or whatever. But this movie's fun. It's definitely good for your young kids to watch. But my biggest issue is Lizzie Lohan. Despite me just talking about, because she is a great actor. And I think it was around this point when she's starting to, in this point in the timeline, gets, falling off in terms of celebrity when she get into all this kind of crap in her real life. Because her acting in this is kind of wooden. It's not very expressive. By comparison to, I don't expect her to be on Michael Keaton's level, but on at least Justin Long's level, he put in a decent amount of emotion in his performance, as well as Breckin Meyer. Hell, Herbie has more, expressive emotion in this film in terms of acting, more so than Lizzie Lohan. Even though I just got off of, reviewing Mean Girls, where she was great in that. I even like Freaky Friday, she was excellent in that. So saying this, it's like, where's the director in this? I'm pretty sure the director is like, listen, can you give me a little, can you say that again with more energy? It's like, we can do this, Herbie. We can do this, Herbie. Yeah. Oh, we got this. Yeah. It's like, it's very raspy too. It's like, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes at that time with Lizzie Lohan. I imagine it had something to do with what was going on in her real life, at least how it was starting out, where she was, one of those Disney stars that kind of spiraled. And I think it was a little bit after this film we starting to see what was carrying on. But yeah, her, she wasn't terrible, don't get me wrong, but it's just like she wasn't really giving any emotion to the lines at all. But other than that, it's just like a fun film. There's certain nonsensical stuff involved where it's like pushing your sense of disbelief in a film a little bit far to try to rationalize in your mind. like the whole yellow beetle thing. It's like, why is it sentient for no reason where it didn't even get. I would have accepted it more if Herbie saw this yellow bug for the first time in Act 1 and it hinted at being sentient by winking at him or something. Uh like it, Herbie did with Jeff Gordon. But it seems like a normal car, but for some reason it's sentient at the end of the film for no reason. But anyway, like I said, this is a fine film. Uh, it, I can see why it still made a lot of money. I'm surprised it made that much money in the box office. I thought it would be like at least make, if it had like a budget of 50 million, I would have probably expected it to have maybe like 70 or 80 million out of the box office, because it's still like a fun film. But it had like $144 million in the box office. I thought it was like, wow. And I can't imagine why it would be that good. That 144 million good. I'm so shocked that it got that much. But anyway, that was Herbie Fully Loaded. I still recommend it, especially when you want to watch it with a nice family film to watch. This is like a good one for you, especially if you have little ones. Have like a fun little movie watch. Continue on with the Herbie legacy for the next generation, because Herbie is an iconic movie vehicle, and it should be respected and carried on in the future. But anyway, that was Herbie Fully Loaded. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, share this with your friends. Let me know what you think of this film, and hopefully at some point this year I will try to do a review for the Speed Racer movie, because I haven't seen that. Only seen that movie probably one time. Because I'm not a car guy, but I have seen it because I've seen like the anime. I was like a little kid, so I should revisit it and give my critique on the film after all these years, because it came out in 2008, I think. But anyway, I will see you guys soon. I'll be back later on tonight as I do my walkthrough of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So look forward to that. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.